Whew.
I believe Joe is tired.
That's hard, but Joe's okay. Joe's here, Joe's happy. It's been a good week. It's been a really good week. I've had a lot of ups and downs this week, but it's been a really good week. I want to thank the church for all you did for me and helping me and letting me go to that trip. Everybody filling in where they did. Last Sunday, at this time last Sunday, I was probably somewhere up in Kentucky on my way. Not knowing what was going on and scared out of my mind, but it's neither here nor there. We got through it, and it was just an absolute blessing. Now, this morning, as I said before I left, we were going into 1 Samuel chapter 22. And kind of feel led to take this one slow. Now, 22 ain't a long chapter, it's only 23 verses. And, but there's a lot to unpack in chapter 22. I was sitting up there studying chapter 22, and I'm like, that's neat, that's cool. I just started noticing things, and so we may take this a little slower. Mom, would you read 1 Corinthians 1, 27 through 29 this morning, please, for me? Teresa, have my
Let me get it found.
Okay, 1 Corinthians 1, 27 through 29.
1 Corinthians what?
1, 27 through 29.
But God had chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and God had chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things. You said 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 2.
He wants you to wait a while.
Yeah, I was signing verses.
I'm sorry, you just assigning verse. I thought you said go ahead and read it.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
I know, because he said, Mama,
Yeah,
you read it.
that's
Yeah, he
my
said,
bad.
Mom, will you read it? And I'm like, okay.
That's my bad, that's my bad.
Okay, I'll stop.
Miss Geneva 11, Hebrews 11, chapter 11, verse 8. And now we'll stop right there because this gets good in this. We'll just do them 2 verses, see where it gets us. Now, I'm gonna read the whole thing, but then we're gonna dive into it. To kind of give you an idea, many people believe only God uses strong, talented, education, wealthy, and influential people, but yet the Scripture, God repeatedly chooses people who are hurting, rejected, discouraged, broken. Now, in chapter 21, David, if you remember last time, David fled from Saul. He was alone. He was afraid. He was uncertain about his future. Now, when we start here, and I start reading, David is in the cave of Adullam. What looks like a setback is actually the beginning of God's preparation for David's life to take the kingdom. In chapter 22 it says, And David therefore departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So when his brothers and all his father's house heard, they went down to him. Everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him so he could become captain over them. And there were about 400 men with him. That's a key note to remember at this point, 400. Then David went from there to Ephraim and Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, Please let my father and mother come here with you till I know what God will do for me. So he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the time that David was in his stronghold. Now you might remember his stronghold, the cave. Now the prophet Gad said to David, Do not stay in the stronghold, depart and go to the land of Judah. So David departed and went into the forest of Perth, where Saul heard that David and the men were with him had been discovered. Now Saul was staying in Gilead under a tarmisk tree in Raham, with his spear in his hand and all his servants standing about him. Then Saul said to his servants, who stood about him, Hear now, you Benjamites. Will the son of Jesse give every one of your fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? and of you has conspired against me, and there is no one who reveals to me that my son has made a covenant with the son of Jesse. And there is no one of you who is sorry for me, or reveals to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me to lie in the wait as it is this day. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse go Nob to Amalek, the son of Adabah, and he inquired of the Lord for him, gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath, the Philistine. Morning, y'all. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. And good morning. So we're in 1 Samuel chapter 22. We're right now starting reading in verse 11. So the king sent to call the Amalekite, the priest, the son of Atubah, and all his father's house, the priests who were in Nob, and they all came to the king, and Saul said, Hear now, son of Atubah. Hear answered, Here am I, my lord. And Saul said to him, Why have you conspired against me, you and your son of Jesse, and that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired God for him, that he should rise against me to lie in wait, as it is in this day? So Amalekite answered the king and said, And who among all your servants is as faithful as David? Who is the king's son-in-law who goes at your bidding and is honorable in your house? Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Far be it from me, let not the king impute anything to his servants, or any in the house of my father. For your servants knew nothing of all this, little or much. And the king said, You shall surely die, Amalekite, and you and your father's house. Then the king said to the guards who stood about him, Turn and kill the priest of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled and did not tell it. But the servants of the king would not lift their hands to strike the priest of the Lord. And the king said to Doeg, Your turn, and kill the priest. So Doeg the Edomite turned, struck the priest, and killed on that day 85 men who wore a linen ephod. Also Nod, the city of the priest, he struck the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and nursing infants, oxen, donkeys, and sheep, with the edge of the sword, meaning they're dead, y'all. And now one, and only one of the sons of Amalek, and the son of Antiba, named Adabar, escaped and fled after David. Adabar told David that Saul had killed the Lord's priest. So David said to Adabar, I know that day when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have caused the death of all the persons of your father's house. Stay with me, do not fear, for he who seeks me, seeks my life, will seek your life. But with me ye shall be safe. Now let me break that down in Common Core English. We've got a soap opera going on here. King Saul knows where David's at. King Saul was in the city where David was, we studied last time, talking to the priest that give David the sword of Goliath. And King Saul didn't like it. Now that priest actually stood up to King Saul. Right there, it said, Who among your servants, in verse 14, is faithful as David? You never, ever stood up to higher authority back then. That was unheard of. I don't care if you were religious priest like that. I don't care if you were his son. You never did. And so this happened. So you see, what's happening now is King Saul, we studied about this whole time, his fear was getting to him. His fear turned to jealousy, jealousy turned to rage, his rage is now turned into doing stupid things. These people didn't have to die. 85 people died. Oxen, sheep, donkey. I heard somebody got a new horse. Happy birthday. But, could you imagine? Could you imagine? Everyone who is in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who is discontented gathered, you see, to David because he was hiding in the cave. There were 400 of them. 400. Hiding in this cave. His dad and his sons and all came. This is where God starts using broken people, people of non-higher learning, as I'm going to call it, because I'm going somewhere with that. There was no doctors. There was no lawyers. There was no wealthy people. They're in a cave. It's a stronghold. It's a cave. But this is where God starts turning the table. Because God starts building his kingdom out of the people that was not wanted. Think of today. Think of where we sit. Right here in Western North Carolina. You have people that are hurting, that are tired. And even in this county, you have people that don't know where their next meal is going to come from. God can use those people. Those can be God's people. Really and truly, we know anybody can be God's people. I said this week, it's kind of interesting, I said this week, I got to go to preaching clinic. I didn't know what that was going to be like. I had not a clue, so scared out of my mind. Because there were people of very higher education that I look up to. I really do, because they can depict the Bible like you're pouring a glass of milk. Just that simple. Anybody can get it. I wanted to see for myself their mechanics, because that's how I learn. If I can see the mechanics of it, I can work it out to understand it better. I was so flipping lost that first day when they looked at me and said, we're going to learn hermeneutics today. Oh yeah. And exegesis. And I'm going, huh? I was lost. Completely lost. And I prayed. I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, I don't know if I can do this. I was almost like some of those people in the cave. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm scared. These people are, every one of them has a DR after their name. Now, I have a DR in my email, Dr. Travel, but, that was when I was in the travel business. I don't have a doctorate degree. They do. Scared me out of my mind. It's Dr. this and Dr. that, Dr. Frymire and Dr. Oh yeah. But here I was, like one of David's lonely little people in the cave. Scared. Scared. This story will finish about my trip as we get on to chapter 23 and 24. But if you ever get in a place in your life where you feel unworthy, not good enough, scared, always remember, God has a people. I learned a lot this week when it comes to myself, when it comes to ministry, when it comes to understanding that a piece of paper does not make anybody special. Because they put their pants on one leg at a time like I do. And you see, the king is going to find out real quick as we get on through this in the next few weeks that he ain't nobody special. Mom, will you go ahead and read that verse again in 1 Corinthians?
1 Corinthians 27 or 26?
1 Corinthians chapter 1, 27 through 29.
But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. And base things of the world, and things which are despised, hath God chosen, yea, and things which are not, to bring to naught things that are, that no flesh shall glory in his presence.
Did you catch that first? The things for the wise, I'm confused. Things of the weak. Miss Geneva, go ahead and read your verse, honey.
By faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went.
Now get this. Miss Geneva, I didn't call her what verse she read. She read that in Hebrews. And they were talking about the Old Testament of Abraham. Now we're studying David, of course, but they're talking about Abraham in Hebrews. Why? Read it one more time, Miss Geneva. Read that one more time.
By faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went.
He went somewhere he didn't know where he was going, but he did in fact. What you're seeing here in this story is people see what has happened in David's life thus far. They've seen and heard about Goliath being killed. They've seen and heard by this time what has happened with Saul tried to kill him himself. The people are starting to believe that the hand of God is on David. They're coming to God. God is building David's army out of broken people. This is how God builds his kingdom. He don't put people in your path mistakenly. He don't accidentally say, oops, well, Christian's going to meet this person today. Let's see if he can figure it out. No. He puts people in your path accordingly to minister to lead, to guide. Sometimes he puts them in your path just to give them a kind word. But that plants a seed. As Christians, that's all we have to do is plant a seed. God's the one that waters the seed. Now, we may either see that seed come to fruition and bear fruit, or sometimes we will. For example, I'm going to use you. My mama and myself remember when you were a little boy. I can remember when you were born, believe it or not, I'm that old. Itty bitty thing. She helped plant a seed. Jimmy planted a seed. I planted a seed. Other people planted the seed in his life. We seen him grow. God watered it. Here's the increase. Here y'all are. Right here in church today. That man right there planted a seed. And all these people. God watered it. Here it grew. Here they sit. Now there are people that we plant the seed. God waters. We may never see an increase. That's not our place to. All we're to do is to plant that seed. So here it is. We're building the story. We're going to do the rest next week. But look what's happening. God is building an army. And I can promise you after studying, it's going to be amazing what happens to 400 people. Because eventually 400 will turn to 8. It'll go to 600, then to 8. Why? Because people understand when the truth is coming out. Always remember that. People ain't stupid, especially in today's times. They try to be. People know the difference in right and wrong. They just choose not to abide by it. But when you listen to God, do what God would have you do, God will build his kingdom. God will build his army. God will build his church. for the longest time, I've worried about our congregation. I've worried. I'll be the first to admit it. I've worried about our congregation. I love this church. I feel God would have me nowhere else but right here. And in ministry, it's tough. It can be very tough. There's been times of being burned out. There's been times of what's going to happen. But I promise you, after reading this and after watching God move, it's not my place to worry. My place is to plant the seed. That's where your place is too. So I challenge you all. We're going to actually stay in chapter 22 next week. We're going to continue on. There's more we got to talk about. We're going to talk about who is Doeg the Edomite. Or as I called him, Doeg. D-O-E-G. Doeg. Who is he? Why is he so evil? Why is he willing to, at a moment's notice, anybody that goes against the king? Why? Or why does his loyalty go to him and not God? Put yourself in these shoes. Think of being David in that cave. Think of being one of David's people. Think of being the son, Adonai. Think about that. Son of a priest, son of a whole city, son of a priest. He's the only one that lived out of all of them that died. How would you feel? You're the only one left in your family. How would you feel to have somebody that you probably laid eyes on once for a little while say, hey, if they're going to kill me, they're going to kill you. You stay with me, you'll be safe because you're under God's protection. And believe that. Just think about it. But we're going to stay in this chapter next week. We're going to finish this up next week because I have more verses and other things. But here is where the tide starts to turn.